Hi guys, so the purpose of today's video is just to teach you a couple of methods that you can use when you're training your dog, okay? You can use them individually or consecutively for different things, okay? Some have got a better purpose for others depending on what behavior you're trying to train. So we're just going to delve into a couple of them and hopefully they'll benefit you in your training and just make it a little bit easier when you're having those challenging behaviors. Let's get straight to it. Okay, so the first behavior we call luring, okay? So that is the method of luring the dog into a behavior using a high value treat or some sort of reward, okay? So the best example I can give you is if you'd want to get your dog into a sit, you would get a high value treat like a piece of chicken or a piece of cheese. Okay, you'd put it to the dog's nose and you would let the dog smell that treat and acknowledge what you are holding as to be a high value reward. Okay, and then you would simply guide the dog into that behavior. So for the example of a sit, okay, you would put the lure to the dog's nose, and as it engages with the smell, you would then gently bring that treat up, keeping it as close to the nose as possible. Okay, the natural body line then will follow that treat, and as the nose goes up, the bum should go down, okay? The minute the dog is into a sit position, you can reward the dog with that treat, okay? Hence the lure into position, okay? What you want to do then is, once the dog is starting to learn that behavior, then start to phase out the treat. So what you can do is carry on with the reward, okay? As the dog is doing that behavior well, you can then start using your hand minus the treat and see if the dog follows, okay? But what I would suggest, best practice, is keep using the treat, okay? Bringing it, luring into a position, okay? No verbal commands at that point. And then as you bring it up and the dog goes into the sit naturally and is learning from the lure, okay? Just start implementing the word sit. But you don't want to implement that word sit until that behavior is fully complete and the dog understands what it is a sit is, okay? If you say it too early, then they will take the sit as being in a half position and bum not to the floor and all that good stuff, okay? So you want the behavior to be complete. You bring their nose up into a lure, the bum goes down, they sit down, you say sit and reward, okay? And then once they're nailing it, you can hopefully remove the treat, okay? So you don't have to lure, you ask the dog to go into a sit, they go into a sit, and then you can reward. So there's no need then for the lure and you can phase that out. Hope that helps, guys. Let's get on to the next one. Okay, so the next behavior is called shaping. Okay, so that is the method of gradually building up baby steps to get to the end desired goal, which is the behavior that you require. Okay, so for example, if you are teaching a sit or a down, okay, we will go with a down. If you're struggling to get the dogs to go into the down position with using the lure, okay, so you're using that lure at the end of their nose to get them to go down, putting it between their paws to get them to nose down and lie down, okay, if you're still not having any joy with that, then roll on to the shaping method, okay? So this is when I said you can use two behaviors consecutively, okay? So you would use a lure and also a shape. So, for example, we're going to teach a down. You put the treat to the nose, hence the lure, okay? And the shaping process may start with the dog just slightly dropping his head down to look towards the floor. You would reward that behavior, okay? If you're using a clicker, which is ideal, use the click, reward the treat, okay? Keep building that up until they are nailing the fact that they want you want them to look down, okay? And then start progressing. So don't release the treat, get them to look a little bit further down, or maybe paws bent so they start to lower towards the floor, okay? Then you would reward. So it's basically telling the dog, the first stage was you looking down, you get rewarded for that. Now you're doing that, you're not getting a reward. So they will try a different behavior to get that end goal. Their other behavior is them then going closer to the floor, okay? So you're shaping them into that behavior. Carry on luring, carry on shaping, okay? And gradual baby steps. They look to the floor, then they bend their elbows, then they lay on their elbows, then their body comes down, okay? Each step, keep nailing. Once you've nailed that step, you move on to the next step before they get their reward, okay? So if that makes sense, so they'll look down, they'll keep getting their reward. They start nailing that, they'll move on to the bent elbows, okay? Or they might move their head slightly lower to the floor, then they'll have the reward, okay? And then once they're nailing that, you stop giving the reward at that point, and you get them to just do that little bit more. So they'll get to the point where they would normally have a treat. they'll be a little bit confused as to why they haven't earned that treat because they're doing what you've asked, okay? So they'll try something else and they may go down a little bit further. Then you can reward that behavior and start asking for a little bit more every time until they're into that position, okay? Once they've learned the down position, again, no verbal commands, don't say the word down, okay? You're just luring and shaping at this point. Once you can go through the whole process, so you lure at the nose, straight down to the floor, okay? So you're flicking back to just using the lure, they go straight down to the floor. When they're on the floor, hold the treat until they're sniffing around your hand, okay? Keeping them in that down position by doing that, okay? Then you can use the word down and reward, okay? And then keep that process going. Lure down to the floor, keep them on the floor by sniffing, okay? They want that treat, they're gonna stay there. Down, reward, and that's when you implement that behavior and that command, okay? Once the behavior is complete, and then there's no confusion as to what a down is. A down is them laying on their belly, reward goes in their mouth, they hear the word down. This is what I know a down is. Okay, hope that helps, guys. Let's jump to the next one. Okay, so capturing method, okay? So for some of those, this isn't taking a photo of your dog when they're in a cute position, okay? But it's not far off. So the capturing method is probably the easiest training method you could possibly use, but still quite effective, okay? So again, using the previous example, this is things you can use for sort of like a down or a sit, okay? But it does go into much more complex behaviors, but a down and a sit, for example, we'll use for the purpose of this video, okay? So if your dog is not going into a sit using the lure or the shaping method, okay, and you're really struggling, you could use the capture method. So all that would entail is you keep some treats close by, maybe a clicker, okay, and you just simply wait. The dog will naturally go into these positions, okay? So if you notice when you're walking around the kitchen, you turn around and you haven't asked the dog to do anything, okay? You don't give any verbal commands with this, and the dog is just happened to be sitting behind you of their own natural accord, okay? Quickly click and reward that behavior. Okay, you can use the word sit, they're already in a sit, that behavior is complete, okay, so click and reward that behavior, and the same goes for a down, okay. The down is probably even easier because most dogs will lie down when they want to go to sleep, okay, but they won't have learned that is the word down and that is what you require, okay. So when they're sleeping on their bed, you simply just go up, click and reward and implement the term down, okay, and that will better help them understand that down is when I'm laid down, belly's on the floor, and I didn't even have to do anything. Mum or dad just came up, stuck some nice juicy treats in my mouth, said I was a good boy, said I was a good girl, and that was the end of it, okay? Practice a couple of sessions like that where you just literally capture that behavior that they're doing, that you want, that they don't know you want, okay? Such as the down, lying on the bed. Try not to do it when they're asleep, okay? So don't go waking a sleeping dog to reward, okay? But when they're chilled, calmed on the sofa, you can even turn to them, click and reward and be like, good, down, good. So they just start to learn that this is sort of the behavior that mum or dad is expecting. When I hear the word down, this is what they want, okay? I hope that helps, guys. Next! Okay, so baiting, okay? And again, this term sounds horrible, but it has nothing to do with fighting and there's nothing to do with leaving your dog as a victim, as bait to anything else, okay? So completely get that out of your mind, okay? So baiting is very much similar to the lure, okay? But you're not in any physical contact with the dog. So again, this is a brilliant thing for things like place, okay? If you want to teach a place command or bed. So baiting is basically getting the dog to a desired position by using way of treat or reward, okay? So again, I'm all for example. So perfect example, if you've got the dog's bed laid out and you want them to learn bed or place, okay, you may want to throw some high value treats onto that bed and get them to go onto that bed and eat it, okay? Works just as well with a crate as well. That's another good training method. So they would go onto that bed and they would eat the treat off that bed, okay? Practice that a few times, okay? So that you're under no illusion that there's any confusion there and they know exactly what you want, okay? Again, as I've said in the previous behaviors, don't implement a command just yet, okay? Make sure you've got it nailed before you implement that command. So, for example, in terms of the bed, okay, you'd throw some treats on the bed, they'd go on, they'd get those treats and they'd come off and they'd come back to you. Lots of praise, brilliant, okay? Do that a couple of times, and if they're doing it and they're fine and they're nailing it and they're walking straight onto their bed and coming back, fantastic. When they're on that bed, you can go over and praise and you can say place or bed or whatever your chosen command is, okay? If you find that they're not going straight onto that bed, straight into that crate, straight into that place, whatever the case may be, revert back to shaping. Okay, so this is when I said you can use different behaviors together. That's when you would use the shaping. Okay, so it might be a case of you throw a treat 1 foot away from the bed, 1 foot away from you. Okay, they would go and get it, they'd come back to you. Then you'd build up that distance until it's just in front of the bed, then it's on the bed, and you can see where this is going. Okay, you're shaping that behavior just like babies when they learn to walk. Okay, they take 1 step at a time, they get lots of praise, then they get confident, they do 2, 3 or 4, and before you know it, they're running between sofas, back and forth to different parents. Okay, so that is what we're aiming for. So shaping, capture, lure, all that good stuff. Okay, that is the end goal. We want that desired behavior in different ways. Okay, so just like nothing else. So baiting, just get the shaping method in. Okay, and then you can build up baby steps onto that bed until you get the desired goal. Then you can implement the bed and the place. Okay, last one, let's go. So moulding. So moulding is basically where you actually physically move the dog into a position how you want it. Okay, not in a nasty way. You're not inflicting pain. You're not using force. Okay, but it's just showing that dog the desired behavior. Okay, again, an easy one: sit. All dogs learn it. Okay, everyone teaches it because it's one of the easiest behaviors to teach. Okay, if luring isn't working, if shaping isn't working, if capturing isn't working, okay, then you can revert to moulding. Okay, it's not one I use first of all because I think there's better ways of doing it, and 9 times out of 10 you don't have to get to the moulding phase. Okay, but there's no harm in using it. So to explain moulding, if I was to teach a sit, okay, and I can't lure the dog their nose up to get their bum to go to the ground, and I can't shape them so their bum is getting slightly closer to the ground and build it up like that, okay, then I could use moulding. So what I would do, I would get to the end of their threshold, i.e. I would lure them to the point where that's as far as they go and I cannot get them to go any further. And what I would do with the other hand is, as I'm luring, I would gently push their bum down with my other hand so it gets their bum closer to the floor. Okay, and then again, once you're in that desired position, once that behavior is complete, then you can implement the term sit, not before. Okay, so you may have to mold it a couple of times. What you may find is you mold it once or twice, and then you can revert back to luring, and then you can phase it out so you're not having to use your other hand, go back to the lure from the mold. So it's mold, lure, then command, and then they should do it fine once they've learned that anyway. Okay, so I would try other methods first, but if it doesn't work, molding's just as fine. Okay, hope that helps, guys. It's just a couple of tactics you can use, different behaviors, use them together, use them separately, that will hopefully make your life easier, make your training more fun, and just be able to get better results and probably quicker. Okay, but like I've just said, make sure it's fun. If you're ever doing training and the dog's not enjoying and you're not enjoying, then stop, because the main goal is we got dogs to enhance our lives, make our lives better. Yes, training's awesome, okay, but it needs to stay fun. It's all a big game to the dog, it's all learning, and it's all a positive experience, okay, for both you and the dog. If it's not fun, don't bother. Okay, I hope that helps, guys. Any queries, any concerns, anything you need clarifying, get in touch. If you haven't already, like I keep saying, get over to our Facebook group, Staffy Training Help, okay? Free community, brilliant people in there, lots of knowledge, non-judgmental, okay? Absolutely fantastic group. Get in there and take as much advice, post pics, give advice as well, okay? We're very vocal, everyone's engaging. Don't miss out, okay? We're also on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, so feel free to come over, give us a like and a follow so you don't miss any videos. Hope that helps, guys. Catch you all soon.